Every man who has attempted to build a meaningful, long-term connection in the contemporary dating landscape has, at some point, encountered the exact same psychological misalignment. The words spoken often do not align with the demonstrated, observable, and measurable actions. You hear declarations of deep emotional availability, yet you observe a consistent pattern of emotional distance. You are promised fidelity and focus, but you witness an unending drive for external validation and option maintenance. It is a strategic mechanism, often unconscious, rooted deeply in female psychology and evolutionary necessity. This discrepancy, this routine reliance on statements that contradict reality, represents the most significant point of failure for men seeking serious partnership. We are talking about the deliberate performance of intent versus the objective reality of motive. We are not discussing minor social fibs or white lies told to avoid hurt feelings. To ignore these patterns is to volunteer your stability, your resources, and your future for a relationship built on a foundation of intellectual deceit. I am going to walk you through exactly why these 7 statements are, according to the data, fundamentally untrue. This is not about judgment. It is about pattern recognition and risk management. It is about understanding the psychological forces at play so you can make informed, evidence-based decisions about who deserves access to your life and your commitment. This psychological game transcends borders and cultures. Drop your city in the comments right now. Understanding that you are not alone in noticing these contradictions is the first step toward reclaiming agency. The first major declaration that studies routinely dismantle is this: I don't care about money or status. This is perhaps the most famous, most universally claimed, and most frequently contradicted statement in the modern relationship sphere. The conscious articulation, the desire for laughter, kindness, emotional connection, is genuine on the surface. However, decades of evolutionary psychology research, sociological studies of partner selection, and even modern data aggregation from dating platforms reveal a reality that completely nullifies this statement. Women do not select partners based on kindness alone. They select partners based on the perceived ability of that partner to provide resources, protection, and status, what we summarize as high mate value. Kindness is a desirable secondary trait, but competence, ambition, and the ability to command respect and resources are foundational requirements, especially for long-term commitment. Studies show an overwhelming correlation. As a man's socioeconomic status, income, and professional standing increase, so does his desirability to women, regardless of his physical attractiveness or professed kindness. Conversely, men who possess abundant kindness but lack resource acquisition ability consistently report being overlooked or relegated to the friend zone. The lie here is deployed to achieve 2 primary functions. First, it serves a critical social signaling function. Saying, I only want money makes a woman sound shallow. Saying, I just want a nice guy, allows her to maintain a socially acceptable, virtuous self-image, while she continues to pursue and select men who are significantly higher in status and resources than she is. She is performing social compliance. Second, it manages the expectations of the men who fall outside her preferred socioeconomic bracket. The moment a man who meets her actual, often unstated resource requirements appears, the nice guy who makes her laugh is instantly discarded. She does not marry the man who makes her laugh. She marries the man who provides security and status while expecting him to also make her laugh. I hate drama. This statement is the epitome of the uniqueness fallacy, the psychological need to distance oneself from the perceived negative characteristics of one's cohort while simultaneously engaging in many of the same behaviors. The reality is that all humans are subject to psychological needs, and women, specifically, possess a heightened need for external validation and the maintenance of their relationship market position. This process often involves a degree of relational turbulence or drama. When a woman states she hates drama, she is signaling her value as a low-maintenance partner. This conflict is designed to gauge the man's commitment, resource provision tolerance, and emotional resilience. Does he fight for her? Does he prove his value by weathering the self-generated emotional storm? If he immediately retreats or remains completely unbothered, she may perceive him as uncommitted or insufficiently invested, leading paradoxically to more drama. She needs to ensure he is willing to tolerate her volatility, because volatility is often a proxy for testing his long-term dedication to her and her future offspring. Furthermore, drama is often a necessary side effect of attention maximization. The need to maintain social media presence, competitive social interactions with other women, and the constant pursuit of external validation, which all contribute to relationship instability. A woman who genuinely values peace and stability demonstrates this through years of consistent, drama-free relationships and stable friendships, not through a singular declaration early in the dating phase. The third declaration that creates catastrophic long-term risk for men is, "My past is irrelevant now. I'm completely over all my exes." A man seeking a devoted, stable wife is implicitly asking, "Have your previous experiences damaged your capacity for long-term pair bonding?" The answer, "I'm over it," is a necessary lie she tells to secure a stable future. Because admitting the truth, that she is carrying significant psychological baggage, would jeopardize commitment. The human brain, particularly regarding attachment, is highly adaptable, but it is not infinitely resettable. If a woman has spent her optimal years, her 20s and early 30s, engaging in serial dating, short-term connections, and prioritizing men who provided high levels of excitement and attraction, often referred to as alpha experiences, but failed to commit, she incurs two primary forms of permanent psychological damage that she cannot simply get over. First, she develops the comparison disease. Her psychological benchmark for attraction and excitement remains anchored to those high-intensity, short-term partners. She may consciously appreciate his stability, but she will unconsciously resent his predictability. This resentment manifests as chronic dissatisfaction, relentless criticism, and sexual withholding, because genuine, enthusiastic desire is reserved for the excitement of the past, not the security of the present. Second, the capacity for secure, genuine pair bonding diminishes. The continuous exposure to different partners trains the brain to keep emotional distance, to constantly evaluate options and be ready to exit. She will struggle to stay present, fearing the vulnerability that genuine bonding requires. Therefore, when she says, "My past is irrelevant," she is stating a necessary fiction. The damage inflicted by years of high-turnover relationships fundamentally alters her ability to receive, appreciate, and reciprocate the stability you offer. She requires commitment now, not because she suddenly desired stability, but because her past choices have eliminated her market viability for the exciting men, forcing her into a strategic necessity. The fourth foundational falsehood that we must dismantle is, "I value emotional support and true connection above all else." While true connection is desired, the declaration that it is valued above all else often masks the biological prioritization of protection and status. The man believes that by performing vulnerability, deep listening, and intense emotional labor, by being the sensitive, emotionally supportive partner, he will secure her devotion. In reality, studies on attraction show that excessive emotional support and immediate availability often diminish a man's perceived dominance and sexual attractiveness. The moment a man makes his entire identity hinge on being her emotional sponge or therapist, he crosses a critical line from partner to platonic service provider. He becomes safe, but unexciting. She wants emotional support, but she desires high value. If forced to choose, biology and psychological wiring often dictate the prioritization of the latter. The man who falls for this lie finds himself providing all the emotional investment without receiving the primary reward: genuine, passionate commitment. Understanding these first four foundational lies, the denial of hypergamy, the denial of psychological necessity for drama, the denial of past psychological damage, and the misdirection toward emotional investment, is crucial. They establish the psychological battleground where men routinely lose. They demonstrate that the modern relationship dynamic is often less about shared values and more about strategic resource acquisition and psychological performance. The world thrives on keeping you confused, hoping you commit before you analyze. You have seen these patterns. You are now equipped with the vocabulary to define it. Do not commit before you understand the full landscape of necessary deception. The next three are even more insidious, dealing directly with fertility pressure, sexual history disclosure, and the ultimate lie of fidelity. I want you to cement this realization immediately. It signals to the algorithm and to the community that you are prioritizing truth over comfortable deception. You owe it to your future self to see the full list. I command you to hit the subscribe button right now. Join the ranks of men who refuse to build their lives on fantasies and performative intentions. Because what women say when they are under biological pressure, when they are desperate to secure commitment, is arguably the most dangerous set of deceptions a man can encounter. Do not risk missing the final truth bombs. You need to know the remaining 3 lies before you even consider saying yes. The truth is that the clock doesn't just run out on fertility. In the first part of this deep dive, we exposed the biological and marketplace panic that drives the "I'm ready now" phase for women with extensive relationship histories hitting their mid-30s. We detailed why that sudden demand for commitment is often strategic necessity disguised as genuine desire. Now we must confront the devastating climax. We are moving beyond the surface performance to understand what happens years later when you commit your resources, your reputation, and your emotional stability to a woman who views you not as her chosen king, but as the necessary structural support for the life she settled for. This is where the 7 foundational lies of the settlement phase detonate, tearing apart the foundation of your marriage from the inside out. But before we dissect the ultimate long-term consequences of this relationship paradigm, I need to know exactly where this message is finding you. To truly understand the scope of this reality, tell me, what city are you watching this from right now? Share your location in the comments immediately below, and let the global community see how universally this pattern manifests. The truth, however, is that her extensive history has fundamentally damaged her ability to find satisfaction in stability. Study after study confirms that high relationship diversity rewires the brain's pair bonding capacity. She says she wants stability because she needs the outcome, children and security, that stability provides. But the psychological framework that seeks stability cannot instantly overwrite the psychological framework that was built over a decade of prioritizing excitement. 5 years into the marriage, when the mortgage is secured and the children are established, that underlying itch for novelty and high-stakes excitement will resurface. It will manifest as constant criticism of you, your lack of ambition, your predictable routine, your emotional flatness, because you represent the safety that her nature now finds boring. The second lie you will hear is, "I've processed my past. I have no emotional baggage." This lie is critical because it's used to prevent you from conducting necessary due diligence. Research in attachment theory demonstrates that individuals with a history of numerous short-term, emotionally shallow relationships often develop avoidant or disorganized attachment styles. You believe you married a partner. In reality, you married an emotional runner who has perfected the art of keeping distance. When real conflict inevitably arises, the kind that requires deep vulnerability and cooperative repair, she won't have the emotional infrastructure to handle it. She will stonewall, retreat, or deploy ultimatums, defaulting to the exit strategy she mastered in her 20s. And you will be left utterly bewildered because you believed her assertion that the past was irrelevant.
The third lie is highly specific to the late 30s settlement phase. "I want our family, and I love the idea of raising children with you." This statement weaponizes your desire for a family against your rational judgment.
The reality is that her biological window demands a provider and a genetic contribution immediately. You are being chosen as the optimal vessel for her final reproductive goal, not as a deeply desired co-parent. Once the children arrive, her focus shifts almost entirely to them, and the perceived debt of having settled for you begins to fuel resentment. She may unconsciously or consciously believe that since she sacrificed her attraction standards to select you for stability, you owe her. The fourth foundational lie is, "I just want you to be yourself." What she actually means is, "I want you to be yourself, but with the excitement and resource accumulation potential of the men I chased when I was 28. The woman who settled for stability is constantly evaluating if she made the right trade. This evaluation manifests as relentless criticism and attempts to change you, to upgrade your wardrobe, push your career harder, or demand more emotionally charged interactions. You thought she accepted you for your stable character. She accepted your stable resources, and is now attempting to retrofit you into the image of the men she actually desired. This leads directly into the fifth lie, which is subtle but lethal. I'm committed to this relationship forever. A history of low commitment, high option dating teaches women one dangerous lesson. Relationships are transactional and replaceable. Commitment is viewed as a legal and financial contract, not an emotional covenant. When the grass starts looking greener, whether through fantasy, emotional infidelity, or the attention of new orbiters, the psychological infrastructure for loyalty is weak. When stress increases, financial trouble, sexual dryness, illness, the transactional mindset kicks in. This is not to say that she will necessarily leave, but her commitment becomes conditional, dependent entirely on your ability to maintain the high level of provision and low level of emotional demand that she requires to suppress her settling resentment. The sixth lie is behavioral, not verbal, the performance of traditional femininity. She claims, "I'm focused on homemaking and being supportive now." The truth is, this is a carefully calculated demonstration designed to satisfy the traditional male desire for a cooperative partner. Once the ring is on and the legal security is established, the performance vanishes. The supportive nature turns into demands, the homemaking capacity disappears, and she reverts to the entitled expectations developed during her years of high market value. She performed the role of the devoted wife to secure the commitment, and once the goal is achieved, the curtain falls. And finally, the seventh lie, the most damaging of all, I am genuinely attracted to you. Attractiveness isn't just physical, it's psychological. Over time, this utility-based attraction translates into devastating sexual dysfunction. Intimacy becomes duty, negotiation, or punishment. For her, sex was historically a tool for securing temporary validation and excitement from highly desirable men. When performed with a man she settled for, the act lacks the necessary psychological spark, leading to coldness, frequency decline, and a profound marital rift. This is the heavy tax of marrying the woman who settled. You pay for her past with your future. You pay for her lack of foresight with your emotional peace. The resentment she harbors for settling combines with the psychological damage from comparison disease, leading to a profound, often permanent, state of marital dissatisfaction. So how do you protect yourself against this psychological time bomb? You must become ruthlessly analytical, understanding that her current presentation is a reaction to her declining options, not a reflection of fundamental change. Test 1. The consistency audit. Do her current stated values align with her demonstrated long-term behavior, especially in areas where she thinks she is not being watched? If she claims stability is key but maintains a high drama, high excitement social circle or actively pursues validation on social media, she is performing. Test 2. The accountability check. Does she attribute her relationship history to bad luck, terrible exes, or external societal pressure? Or does she articulate, without defensiveness or victimhood, the exact mistakes she made, the toxic patterns she perpetuated, and the specific personal changes she instituted to prevent their recurrence? Genuine maturity accepts ownership. Performance shifts blame. Test 3. The timetable test. If you slow the pace of the relationship, not dramatically, but to a healthy 6 to 18-month timeline for commitment, what is her reaction? If she is in biological panic, she will introduce manufactured crises, ultimatums, and intense emotional pressure because time is literally closing her window of opportunity and her performance cannot hold indefinitely. The desperate rush is the red flag. A woman who truly desires you can wait. For men in the current dating market, you have 3 clear choices, and you must choose one decisively. You can accept the reality of the settlement phase and understand that choosing this path means managing a low satisfaction marriage that requires high tolerance for resentment. Or you can choose to opt out of traditional commitment entirely, prioritizing your resources and peace above a societal expectation that is no longer structured to benefit men. What you must never do is commit your life and resources based on a temporary performance driven by a ticking clock. We replace wishful thinking with pattern recognition and emotional decisions with strategic risk management. Now, I want to hear the truth from the men who have seen this pattern clearly. I'm asking you right now to join our community and stamp the defining phrase into the comments. Type this exact sentence below, certifying your commitment to reality. I refuse to be a solution to a problem I did not create. This phrase is your commitment to sanity. Use it now. You deserve to receive this information directly, consistently, and without censorship. Recognize the value you just received and confirm your place in this circle of informed men. This is your action toward higher value and better decisions. And finally, if you think we've reached the climax of necessary confrontation, wait for our next discussion. I'm talking about the economic and social scaffolding that ensures the modern relationship remains unstable, and how the culture manipulates the fundamental incentives of male and female bonding. You absolutely cannot afford to miss this deep dive into the system itself. The Truth You Need is coming soon.